In one of the former lessons, I've been discussing peace at heart, a joyful heart, a grateful heart that is like a medication, that is like medicine for your body. How can we help people getting that peaceful heart while circumstances are disturbing? And so I'll take two examples from my own life where my peace was disturbed and how, with the help of God and hearing his voice, I came back to peace. And you'll come to the conclusion that hearing the voice of God and helping people to start to hear the voice of God is a solution for a lot of problems. Because when you start hearing the voice of God, that voice comes with his presence and it brings peace. Many years ago, I made a walk in the forest and I'm praying in tongues loud. I'm trying to listen to the voice of God. And suddenly the Lord spoke to me and says, very soon, two people are going to betray you in a very painful way. I was shocked about what he said, so I immediately asked, who, Lord? And he didn't answer. The next day, I got a phone call from a friend. He and me were together in a charity. In his charity, I was on the board of his charity, and he was on the board of my charity. It was about the publishing house. And he called me and says, I urgently need to see you. So, okay, we agreed on meeting one another halfway in a road restaurant. And so I met him and his wife. And this was their message. We want to separate from you. We want to unfriend you, not just on Facebook, but we want to unfriend you in life. So we want a kind of separation. And they said, we want you to leave the board of our charity, and we are going to leave the board of your charity. And so we want a separation, and we want to stop having contact with you. I was completely surprised. I thought, what is that? So I told him, like, why? What is the reason for this? And so the man says, it's because you do not always agree with us. I said, well, that's what friends are for. When you're planning something, making a decision, and I think it's not the right decision, and it's not good for you, I say, well, you shouldn't do that. And so he reacted like, we don't need your comments, we don't need your opinion, we have our own opinion. And if something goes wrong, that is early enough that we find out ourselves it wasn't working, and we don't need your advice on that beforehand. I was quite shocked. Okay, so I went home and we did the formalities. And that afternoon, I made again a walk in the forest. And I started complaining to God. I says, Lord, this is not righteous. You know what I did for those people. I helped them. I encouraged them so many times when they were down. I cheered them up. I even took them on holidays. We did things together. And so this is so unjust, the way they treat me now, the way they betray me. And so I did my portion of complaints, and then I asked, like, what's your opinion? And this is what happened. For the first time in my life, I saw the finger of God. Did I see it for real? No, it was like a visionary thing, but it was something I strongly felt. And he said to me, Gordon, I love them, so you will love them. And they are very broken and wounded people. And so when he spoke to me and his words touched my heart, I immediately decided to forgive completely and not to hold any grudge or any disappointment in my heart, but to forgive them completely. It took some years. Years later, they sent me a message and they said, well, Gordon, we are now in a country where you are active as a missionary. And everybody is asking us, do you know Gordon? And of course we said, yes, we know him. And then people start saying beautiful things about you. Isn't he a great guy? Isn't he a wonderful man of God? And yeah, what should we say? Of course, we confirm that, yes, he's a wonderful man of God. But it's burdening our conscience because we separated from you and we had a bad opinion about you. We were angered with you. And now we are in some way forced to say that you're a wonderful man of God. And so, we have to come back on our decision that we don't want any contact anymore. And so in some way we need to reconcile. I'm happy that that happened, and I was ready for that for some years. When God spoke to me, and even when he was a bit strict, immediately the peace of God came in my heart, and I knew what I had to do. And I remained in the peace of God, so I didn't go with the disappointment or bitterness. Another thing. During my work in Uganda, on one of my trips, my money was stolen. Now, I am not rich, and I wasn't rich, so the money mainly came from donators. It was in an envelope with my name on it, so the person that stole it knew it was mine, obviously. And it happened in the orphanage school compound where I have a guest room, where everyone knows me. So the person that took the money knows me, and he or she knows what the money is for. Because this money is meant to pay the expenses of the missionary trip. You know, when I'm in Uganda, I cannot count on any financial contribution of the people I work with. I mean, if someone picks me up from the airport, I have to pay for it. When we travel, I have to pay all the travel expenses. So mostly I end up renting a car for the whole month. And that could amount up to $900 for a whole month to have a car and be driven around with some of my team members. Then, of course, during the mission trips that we make in Uganda, I'm responsible for feeding the whole group. If there is some money left over, it goes into the orphanage. Very often when we are a week with the church, and so we do a seminar there, people ask me to give a substantial contribution for feeding the whole crowd, and that might amount to several $100s. So mostly a trip to Uganda of a month or so cost me $3,000. And that money comes from donators. So when that money was stolen, I got so angry. I must say I haven't been that angry for many years. I think all my life I've never been that angry. Like someone steals from the donator, steals from me, steals from the ministry, steals from God, and steals from orphans. And that person is jeopardizing our whole mission trip, because how am I going to find funding for that situation? And so in my mind was a court session. In fact, it was, what kind of punishment must that person have? I had no idea who did it, but that was this question: what kind of punishment deserves the person that stole that money? That person without conscience, that simply steals from God in a Christian school. And so with my mind and my thoughts, my court session, I came to this verdict: this person is not worthy of life. The world would be much better off without him or her. And I have to admit it, even thinking, let a big truck run over that person so that he is no longer there. This person doesn't deserve life. Because of my anger, I did not communicate with God at that moment. And it was only after 2 days that I said, Lord, forgive me that I was so upset. I really need to hear your opinion about this. And in some way, I was expecting God to tell me, I know the thief and I will get him. That's some way I was hoping. I was that far. And this is what he said: calm down, you. I have enough money. You know, you can't reason or discuss with God. You cannot disagree with him. So I realized I had to calm down, forgive that person, whoever it did, that I should completely forgive that person and just trust God. Of course, near the end of the trip, when all the payments had to be made, I realized the money was not there. And so I asked God the stupid question, like, should I worry? And he said, of course not. To be honest, I asked the next day, should I worry? And he says, no way. And on the very last moment, I received an email from England, and this is what it said. A healing room in England received a substantial donation, and they decided to transfer that and that amount for your work in Uganda. And I was thinking, who in England knows that I'm in Uganda? And I didn't speak about the theft. Just my nearest friends knew about it. I did not put it on Facebook, so no one in the world, in fact, knew about the stolen money. And suddenly, the right amount was transferred to us. Like a miracle. Why would someone in England send money to me? How would someone have the idea that I might need that kind of money? Yeah, I kept the peace of God. I returned into the peace of God. A few years later, we got money to buy a ministry car, so a minibus, like a minibus that could travel with the whole team. And after using it a few times, it was stolen. Of course, I was upset for an hour, maybe. I was quite upset, like how can we continue with our ministry? How can we fulfill our promises to travel there? How can we do without a car? But within an hour, I was back in the peace of God. I was back in his joy. I was in his presence. By this kind of communication with God, the peace of God stays on me. And I think it's one of the reasons why I'm relatively healthy. So when we're ministering to people that are missing this peace, we really should teach them how to hear the voice of God. We've spoken about this in the first lessons. Because you cannot bring that peace by just giving some positive words. That's not enough. Saying, well, the Lord is going to provide and don't be so upset. That is not big enough. And so you have to teach people how to hear from God and receive God's love in their heart immediately. So often I talk with people about processing their disappointments. I know many people have left church because they were disappointed in a pastor, disappointed in fellow believers because something happened. I find a lot of bitterness and unforgiveness with people, especially those that left the church. And so I decided and I had my disappointments in life, sure. And so I decided it was very necessary for me to process my disappointments with God. So whatever happened to me, now I would ask, Lord, what is your opinion about that? How should I have processed it? And right now, when there's some disappointing thing happening to me, people get angry with me, people are frustrated with me. Within a second, I am with God. And I say, Lord, how do you interpret that situation? And sometimes he says, oh, ignore it. It's just a storm in a glass of water. Sometimes he says, well, those people just have the wrong perception. And just ignore it. So I managed to keep the peace of God in my heart. And I found it's necessary that we teach our visitors, people that come from ministry, that we teach them how to get and keep the peace of God in their heart, because that guarantees their health as well. And so I think this is very important. And so in other lessons, we are going to speak deeper on this, especially when it's about rejection issue, because the ultimate healing of rejection and self-rejection is hearing the voice of God for yourself. Amen.